And once again, we are here on a Friday evening. I don't know if you're hearing music in one ear, but I certainly am. Things are going well, technically, already. T-Sips with you, along with Ryan from up in the NHL. Has gotten a chance to join us tonight. Been out for a couple of weeks, but we'll talk about everything that's been going on, obviously, after week 4 and what we are seeing up in the big league as well, as Ryan has some insight there. And we'll talk about probably a lot of the same issues that they see there and we see in the AHL. So it's been a fun, couple of weeks here for us, and I'm sure it's probably no different for you guys in the NHL. Again, T-Sibs here with you along with Ryan, and we are live here on a Friday night talking everything AHL and NHL. And hopefully we'll get a few more guys to show up one of these days. But for now, we are going to go with just the two of us, and we will talk about as much as we can about what's going on in both leagues. And Ryan, you haven't been around, so let me get a chance to talk to you and find out what we've talked a lot about the types of issues that we're having in the AHL with personnel, and what kind of a nightmare it is to field a team on a regular basis. And we've talked a little bit before the show tonight, and you wonder. You want to believe that the NHL players are a little more dedicated and have a little more energy about playing this game, but it sounds like the NHL is dealing with the same kind of garbage that GMs and AGMs in the AHL are dealing with guys not showing up. And I understand, vacations, whatever, that comes up. Graduations, certainly, this time of the year. Well, actually, now it's more like the end of high school for some guys. But,
to the majority of the league.
Yeah, I think that's right. But really, what winds up being the bigger issue in the NHL? What kinds of, is it just guys not showing up or lost interest in playing the summer league? What's happening up there?
It feels like a mixture of both. I mean, availability this season has been just noticeably bad. I mean, we have guys who just you can. When I built the team last season in Iowa, I didn't want to have to question whether someone would show up. It feels like every single game, it's always something. There's like a 50-50 chance on whether the guy shows up. It's kind of crazy. And you'd think that, playing on the highest level, that you wouldn't have to deal with that BS. But here we are. It's frustrating,
I can hear the frustration in your voice for sure. So how we were talking last show, and Vibes joins us now as well on the program. We talked last show about a lot of ECUs being used. I think Manitoba is one of the teams that's been hit the hardest. I think he had the highest number. I think Vibes told me he had 24, 25 ECUs through week 3, which is just about one a night. It's kind of ridiculous that you wind up having to deal with that many fill-ins during the week. Are you getting those kinds of numbers where you're dealing with having to fill somebody in every night, or is it just a sporadic thing where all of a sudden you get a couple of guys who are out?
I don't know. It feels like that. It feels like it's every single game. I'm sure it's not. In some of the games that I played, it's 3 or 4 guys from Hartford. Shout out to those guys for being there and being able to play.
Mm-hmm.
Those are not to say it's just really it's kind of frustrating that the rest of your teammates would blow it off. And it's not like game assignments are done 30 minutes before the game. You know when your games are, and like if you know that you're not going to show up, there's like a billion ways in this day and age to like let a GM know that, hey man, I can't make it. Something comes up,
Mm-hmm.
It's really frustrating. I wish it was different. Unfortunately, it's the way it's kind of been going, and it keeps on going. It's week 4 now, Nothing's really changing about it.
Anything better for you in week 4 vibes? How did your team fare with fill-ins this week?
I think we're up over 30 now, probably around 32, 33 ECUs on the season.
Wow, just ridiculous.
I mean, I've decided to take a optimistic approach, and I look at it as I have essentially a 50-man roster as opposed to a 17-man roster. And when you look at it like that, it's kind of like you're just using roster players.
One of the things I've thought about, though, in terms of this is up in the NHL, they've changed the weekday schedule from having that game on Thursday. So now we have 3 on Tuesdays. I've kind of wondered whether that's had any kind of effect.
I can assure you it has absolutely zero effect.
Probably. Something that I've thought about, though, maybe. I mean, I know most times I can't play Mondays. If someone else's schedule, was similar to mine, except they couldn't play Tuesday, I'm sure that makes it more difficult. However, again, though, it's not like the schedules are random. You get them on Sunday, you show up.
Yeah, we've had a few of those where it's and we'll talk about Albany in a second. And this is why you quit Albany. At least this is why one of the reasons why I was glad to get out of there. We get guys. Greek would talk to him an hour before the game. Oh yeah, I'm going to be there, and then couldn't raise him if you got the CIA to look for him, and it's just ridiculous how these guys you could communicate with them, and like you say, there are so many ways to be able to talk to people. Everyone's on Discord now. You still have Skype. You've got the LG
PlayStation
site.
app too.
Yeah, you got the PlayStation
can message
app.
your team directly. It's not that hard. Or LG. There's
right.
literally 4 different avenues you could take. It's not hard.
And yet, for some reason, they find a reason. They find a way to disappear. If nothing else, we have a generation or two of guys who might be good for covert ops because they know how to not be found when the time comes. So it's just been a huge problem this season. I don't understand how you can commit to the season and then, not show up. And some of them coming up with the excuse that, there had some trips planned. Then why just sign up to begin with? Just go and
or
just
go
play
on
drops.
IR.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And give someone else the chance to come up and play. I know there's plenty of amateurs out there, especially from the CHL, playing all last season. You have a ton of amateurs who are, ready to go. It's just, you're holding a spot from them.
Right.
I have a couple buddies that are down in CHL that would love to come up and play AHL. It just, there's people holding spots.
Right.
It's kind of frustrating for them too.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what happened this past week. At the end of last week, really, with the Albany Devils. I don't want to go on with this for an hour, but I want to talk a little bit about what Greek wound up doing, the reaction, and then get your ideas and your feelings whether or not you feel. Do you feel he was warranted to do what he did? Do you feel people are warranted to have the kind of reaction that they've had? Obviously, Greek Zeus, whatever name he was going by this season, was the GM in Albany. Nature X is his AGM. I was the second AGM. And he wound up having a struggle. And believe me, I saw a lot of the back and forth with players all season long. And all season long really was 3 weeks. From guys who all of a sudden say they're going to show up, not show up. Guys get traded to the team and say, "Hey, look, if I don't like the makeup of this team, I'm going to tell you to trade me." And then just guys not showing up, and so he got frustrated and he left. Now you could say, okay, there was a commitment there for the team. You probably should have stuck it out, and I understand that viewpoint. But if you don't know the background of all that was happening in Albany and the kind of lack of communication that was going on with a lot of players, with guys getting traded over, it was bad. I didn't request a trade from Albany, but Greek had seen how badly I reacted for a couple of days in a row at the end of week 3, by Wednesday, I was ready to kill half the team for their lack of dedication and stupidity, and I was going to stick it in, but Greek said, "Look, I have a deal going. I could throw you in if you want to go. You could stay if you want to stay, but you seem like you are." You're getting fed up with this, and I said, yeah, you know what? If it's a good deal for you, I don't want to abandon you, but if it's a good deal, do what you have to do. You're not gonna, you're not gonna upset me. I get it. It's all part of the game. So he traded me about a day or two before he quit, and he had, I had no idea from him that he had gotten to that point where he felt like it was time for him to leave. So, that's you guys have been in management roles, and Moose, I'm sorry, Vibes with the Moose this season. You know, this kind of
He just
situation,
called me
Vibe.
a moose, but
Yeah, well,
okay.
what Vibes? What do you? You're in. If you're in this kind of situation, I'm not asking you to say what's right or wrong, but
Uh,
is there a level here where you get tired and say, I'm done trying to make this kind of an effort for a video league?
um, I mean, like, I understand the frustration, and I'm not gonna say that there wouldn't be a part of me that would feel that way.
Hmm.
But I mean, I have a little bit too much pride, and I'm the type of person where if the ship's going down, I'm going down with it. I do completely understand his frustration, and it's kind of an unfortunate turn of events. It's an unfortunate situation, but he made his choice, and I mean, I don't agree with it. I think that he probably should have stuck it out. Um, you know, all with the understanding that I actually do like Zeus as a person. Judging from what I've had interactions with him in the managers chat, and then what you've said of him, I do like the guy. But ultimately, I think he kind of took the back door out, and I don't agree with it.
I would have to agree. I mean, quitting when you take management of a team, you know what you're getting yourself into. You're signing up for it. It's not something that it's definitely when you go into the season, it's a possibility that you have to consider, and you have to kind of deal with it if season's not going so hot. Is what it is. Again, I'm kind of in the same boat. I don't particularly love Zeus, but at the same time, I do respect him. That Charlotte team that he created with Ducks last season was
Well,
terrific. They did a great job down the stretch. I respect him as a GM.
hang on, I just want to cut in there real quick.
Hmm.
Because actually, and this is, what, this is maybe motivation for Zeus, because again, I will say that I do like the guy.
Hmm.
But I said last season that he stepped in shit with Charlotte, and all this does is prove that I was right, and he did step in shit last season, and he couldn't do it again this season. See, look, it's one thing to make a good team and have a good team one season, but do it season in and season out, and then talk to me. So, again, capture lightning twice in a bottle, and he couldn't do it. And it just proves that what I said was correct. And there's been a lot of talk that Ducks fan had a lot to do with that team, and chances are you probably did. That being said, I do appreciate Zeus as a person, and I think he's a pretty good guy overall, despite what people think of him.
Right, but when you're a GM, everyone's gonna say Ducks probably deserves more credit. It's a management team. It's not one person who's constructed the entire thing. I mean, you know, constructed where someone does a lot of heavy
Yeah.
lifting, but he's part of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think it's very rare. From what I've experienced in this league so far, it's very rare that um, you get a team that is really successful that it's just one person's doing. Uh, I think even with Stockton last season, I think Loops will even tell you, he got a lot of help from everybody, not just the guys who were named AGM, but just guys who were performing well, who wound up being good leaders on the team, and wound up helping to promote an atmosphere that was good for everybody. And so, it's not often that you get one guy who does a fantastic job and really, gets the team to the championship. And I'm sure, you know, Ducks. We saw him. We saw him in the AHL early on in PSN. He was with. I believe he was with Arizona with Moran and Vihai for season 3, if I'm not, or season 3, I think. Yeah. Um, Talented player, but also just a smart individual who's not a reactionary and is a good judge of talent. So you got to believe that they both did what they did with Charlotte last season. It wasn't one guy, and I guarantee you, Greek would tell you the same thing. It wasn't all his doing. I know what people think about him in the shop box, but I talked to him outside of the shop box, and he talks to guys there, usually with one purpose, and that is just to piss them off. He knows that he's going to get the reaction he's going to get, and so he does what he does. But if you talk to him and he's got respect for you, it's a totally different ball game uh, when you have a discussion with him. And I'm sure he'd be the first one to say that Ducks had a lot to do with that team. But you're right, Vibes. It's if you do it year after year, then maybe you could say, hey, look, I do have a good lay of the land, and I do understand the players pretty well, and how this game should play, and how personalities need to mesh. And I think I think I saw something very similar to what we wound up going through with Tucson in season 3. I was helping Broski out as his AGM, and he wound up making a lot of moves. And I think I know there's a lot of wheeling and dealing early on the first few weeks, but I think even that last week he made enough trades up front that there was only 2 or 3 forwards left from the week before. So I think you can mess with a lot of players. You can mess with the chemistry big time if you make a lot of moves, and I think you have to be prudent with that. You guys would know just as well. I know you've done a lot this season, Vibes, but uh, there's got to be a point where you have to say, okay, I've got to let the dust settle and let these guys get used to playing together.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean that's pretty much the point that I'm at now, excuse me. It's I've made an uncharacteristic amount of moves early on this season.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely a much higher volume than I'm used to. But I feel like it was just kind of traversing the landscape of the league this season.
Right.
And now I do feel like it's settled in. So yeah, not to talk about too much about my plans, but I would certainly agree with that you don't want to keep fiddling with the radio. You kind of want to,
Yeah.
let the station. Oh, shit, I'm showing my age again. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, you don't want to mess with things.
Hmm.
Let's leave it at that. Let the steak simmer. Let it sit on the flame for a little bit.
What's your again? What's your experience, Ryan? I know last season with Iowa. I mean, you guys were known for at the trade deadline keeping relatively quiet and letting the chemistry flow, and you guys went pretty damn far last season. I got to believe you're probably a bit of a proponent for that kind of strategy with moving players around.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we had last season, I think we had 12 players come back from the season before. We kept all those guys, those core guys, all the way through. I mean, it's like, having guys know where they're going, what they're supposed to do. It just helps so much more. We were able to develop plays and stuff like that. Game plans going. We were going to play like a run and gun style. Didn't make the team life miserable trying to go through the neutral zone. All those things, knowing where you're supposed to be and stuff like that, and kind of ingraining like how we want to play,
Hmm.
it helps you so much, so much. I mean, we made I think 2 really big moves at the trade deadline. We acquired Getty Grant to play right wing, and
Hmm.
then Skyhawk as a goaltender as our backup. Well,
Right.
I guess we had two number 1 goalies, but
Yeah.
um, it was those moves weren't really huge. We already played with Getty a whole bunch. He's buddies with me. He's buddies with a couple guys on the team. We know him, so it wasn't like a huge like shock to the system trade.
Right.
Um, we really wanted to avoid doing that and having games where we go out and look completely lost. I think that's one of the things that happens after trades is guys don't know what they're supposed to be doing, what their role is. And then even coming in, most of the time when you're making a ton of trades, you don't exactly know who the players are that you're trading for. Like you can look at their stats and stuff like that, but that doesn't tell the real story of who a player is, how they play, and what they're all about. Guys play the game differently. And again, when you throw everything into the frying pan, sometimes it's just not good.
So in the end, the kind of reaction I want to kind of finish up this whole discussion with the way that people reacted to him quitting. I'm sure most of the reaction in there agreed in principle with what you guys are saying, but the disgust and just downright verbal attacks towards Greek were plenty on the Shoutbox that day and the day after. Um, is it warranted, for people in the league to have that reaction? Do they have a reason to feel that way because they feel like people are abandoning the season, and when a GM does it, it's something that they should take seriously? How do you feel about the reaction that most of the folks had in the Shoutbox after Greek said he was quitting?
I mean, I think a lot of that is just because of who it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like I
Sure.
think that maybe if, like, for example, say I quit, I think it might be a totally different reaction. Although I guess some people don't like me as much as they don't like Greek, but I think it would be a fairly different reaction. So I think a lot of that is based off of who he was as a person and the fact that I would say a grand majority of the Shoutbox heroes or warriors don't really like him too much. So
Sure.
I think that had some to do with it. And then I do think that people generally don't really respect somebody who quits like that. And ultimately, I mean, I know that he was dealing with a lot of people kind of cut from the same cloth, in the sense that they weren't really steadfast individuals. They were kind of flaky. They were, put me with this one, or do this or do that,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm not showing up. But at the end of the day, he reduced himself to the same exact model and mold by
Right.
quitting.
Yeah.
He essentially brought himself down to being one of them. And I think ultimately people don't respect that, and people who are passionate about the league and passionate about just staying with it in general probably didn't like it, and they reacted as they did. And I mean, I do think in a way it is kind of warranted, and maybe in a way a little bit over the top, but ultimately I think that the reaction was justified.
I think the reaction just stemmed from who it was. I mean, there were days where Greek would just fling it all day long. He'd be all over players. Anybody who entered the shout box, he was up against.
Right.
I mean, to be honest, the reaction was absolutely no surprise. It was exactly what I expected going in. Guys were going to be on his case because, listen, if you're going to dish it, you better be prepared to take it. And he definitely took it that day when he quit. I mean, it's literally probably the most predictable thing I've ever seen, as it pertains to the shout box, which is probably the most unpredictable, wild, wild west section of the internet.
Oh yeah. Without question.
Well, you didn't think Greek was gonna quit, and everyone was gonna be like, "Oh man, poor Greek, poor
Yeah,
guy. I feel so sorry for him. He was
yeah,
such a nice
everybody was
fella."
out for him. I mean,
Yeah, well,
it's literally again the most predictable thing I've ever seen. Again,
yeah.
it's all just because he's such a character. I guess character is probably the best word to use in the shout box.
Mm.
Again, he said he talks so much, such a big game, and then he talks people down. It's again,
He does, yeah,
nothing, it's so super predictable.
yeah.
We'll get on to the talk of the league. I just wanted to get through that and the summer season has been a tough one, I think, for a lot of GMs and owners, and I think in the end, we probably should thank all those guys who've stuck in there and who are doing the damnedest to try and keep a team together. Speaking of teams, let's actually talk about some teams so far and discuss what we're seeing in the standings so far. Right now, you've got Hershey up by 14 on Bridgeport. The rest of the teams are all fall in line there in the Eastern Atlantic. I think someone just recently said of the Eastern Atlantic that it is a bit of a dumpster fire, and I'm not sure if I know who said that, but he might be on this podcast. Yeah, Hershey is where they are, and it's very similar to what we saw last season. They've got control of this division.
It's even worse.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, 6 out of 7 teams are under 500.
Yeah, I mean they're absolutely running away with that division. I mean, it's not even a contest. You look at, you mentioned Bridgeport and them being second. I mean, they're probably what, sixth, seventh, maybe in any other division. I mean, that division's with all due respect, because again, I guess when you play like that, not a whole hell of a lot of respect is deserved. But it's an absolute wasteland, and easily Hershey's gonna. I mean, I'll predict it right now. I mean, not that it's much of a prediction, but Hershey is gonna walk away with that division. So
that's a real hot take there, Vibes.
Yeah, right.
I would have never thought of it that way.
I mean, yeah, it's
nuts, dude.
Yeah, I mean, you got to respect the balls that I have making a call like that. But yeah,
dude, we're only in week 4, man. Come on, you can't be saying crap like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's my magic 8-ball. I'm shaking it. It's telling me Hershey's gonna win. So,
I mean, not to pile on even farther, but to put the point forward. I think Hershey is the only team in that division that has more goals for than against, and it sums it up perfectly.
I mean, you put Hershey in any other division, and they're right there. They're fighting for the lead, and the other teams are going backwards. So. Hershey, I'm sorry, backwards.
They're the only team in the last 10, as you look at the standings, only team above 500 in their last 10 games, and they went 7-2-1. Springfield at 5-5, and everybody else either 3 wins or Wilkes-Barre 10 in a row now without a win, at least in the last 10, and God knows how long that streak's been going on. So, yeah, I think Swagger picked he made the right decision staying in Hershey and running that team. Eastern North, you've got Binghamton, Syracuse, Toronto now, all tied in first place with 52 points. And
that's a really good division, by the way.
Yeah,
that's
Toronto.
A really good division.
Toronto having the toughest time, right? With
top 4, they might have the strongest top 4 in the league in terms of teams. I mean, Toronto, Syracuse, and Binghamton are all right there fighting for number 1. It's really, really awesome actually to watch.
All 3 of those teams are good, really good.
Well, Utica even too. I mean, they're 8 games over 500. They're doing quite well.
Utica's good too. I mean, like we always talk about the Western Central, but the Eastern North is, they are definitely laying their claim to this league this season. That is for sure.
I think the one thing that makes the Western conferences a little bit more fun is that the races for number 4 are very tight. You look at Grand Rapids and Charlotte fighting right now. I think they're only separated by 2 points. You even have your team Manitoba's up 4 on Charlotte, so that'll be a race to watch. Looming just behind them is Chicago at 39. And you go into the Western Pacific, same kind of deal. You have Stockton right there, right behind San Diego, 2 points behind. I think those will be really, really awesome races to watch. Unfortunately, I don't think you'll have that in the Eastern North. I think those 4 teams are going to be locked in for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I agree, man. And that's the one appeal that the West does have. You do drive home a really good point there. Is the one appeal the West does have is that you could almost say that almost every team in these divisions are right there, and then in the Eastern North, there's the 4 teams, and then there's a bit of a drop off. But yeah, I totally agree with that 100%.
Well, I mean, you want to talk about a crazy race. You got the Eastern Atlantic. You have the Providence Bruins with 32 points. Just behind them, the Lehigh Valley Phantoms at 28 and Hartford at 27. Ooh, crazy stuff.
And if you saw the Lehigh Valley game against Stockton, they didn't have a great week, the Phantoms, but they if you watch that game against Stockton and take a close look at it, especially you guys in the Western Pacific, you may have a blueprint there on how to handle Stockton on a consistent basis. And a few teams did that this week. We'll talk to Stockton. We'll talk about Stockton in a second. But in the Western Central, Cleveland still doing well on top there. Iowa right behind them, and Manitoba there, lurking 9 points back at the top spot. And then, as you mentioned, Grand Rapids, a couple back from them. Charlotte, two more back from Grand Rapids. Chicago, I like what I'm seeing with the Wolves. I've spent 1 week with them. There's a lot of talent there, and I think they might be starting to turn a corner. And hard to catch up to these guys in this division, but it is a really tough division, the Western Central. Once again, the way it was last season, might be even a little tougher now this season.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, I think it's probably a little bit closer even. I think last season you kind of had two teams who were like really up there, and I don't want to give too much credit to my guys, but we're still hanging back a little bit. Again, it's been a struggle with the ECUs and stuff like that, but I still don't think that we've hit our peak yet, and I think that once we do, we're a better team than both Iowa and Cleveland. So I think this is certainly a three-team race for certain. And then the Griffins are good,
Yeah.
and anyone who is counting the Griffins out, you're making a mistake. And then even the Checkers. So this is really, I mean, five teams that, if the wind blows one way or the other, could end up pushing towards the top here. And then even Chicago and Milwaukee are good teams as well. Rockford, you know, whatever, but they're on paper they're a good team. Just it's not adding up for them this season.
Over in the Western Pacific, San Jose still on top, barely a point over Ontario. The Stars are right there as well. About what do we have here? 6 points back of San Jose in the top spot. The Gulls now in fourth, and Stockton now in fifth, 2 points back of San Diego, going 6-4 in their last 10. And Stockton, we talked a little bit about them last week, and I know there are going to be people who are not going to be happy because we're talking about Stockton again. Well, guess what? They're the defending champs, and if you want to know how to beat a team that pretty much put themselves right back together again this year, you might want to look at the way that their, arguably their top line of Pasta, User, and Ryan went 0-3 this week, and I'd have to look back at last season. I don't remember what I saw, what we had then, but you might want to look at what happened last season, see if that ever happened at all last year. That line was beaten 3 times this week. A big reason why Stockton not in the top four, and as I mentioned, I got a chance to look at a couple of games, that Lehigh Valley game. And it looks like maybe a couple of teams, even not even in their division, are starting to figure out a way to handle guys who are very talented up front for the Heat.
Yeah, there definitely could be something to that. And you know what? While we're talking about Stockton, the other night in the Shoutbox, I think it was actually last night or the night before, but so a few guys from the Providence Bruins were giving it to me. We're saying, yeah, he vibes, yeah, hey, like Stockton now, because they just beat them and everything like that. And my response was, well, after I picked my head up off of the desk from slamming it into it,
Uh-huh.
was, of course I'm still thinking Stockton is who they are. You know what I mean? You guys beat them once on a bad week, and you think suddenly that's it. You're gonna sweep Stockton under the rug. Absolutely not. They're gonna be there. I mean, that's a really good team out in Stockton, and just because they had, what's funny too, I gotta say, Stockton is kind of mirroring us in a lot of ways because we started out slow, they started out slow. We picked it up, they picked it up. And I would say this week was probably a mediocre to sub-mediocre week for us and for them as well. But if you think Stockton isn't going to be there, you're nuts. You're out of your mind.
Yeah, without question. I look again. Ryan talked a little bit about what they did in Iowa last season, getting a lot of guys back, that kind of chemistry and familiarity within the team with players. That means a lot. If you don't think it does, then again, look at what I was able to do last season, even when a really strong Stockton team was making a run for it. Iowa could have been there just as easily because they did something very similar. They kept those players together, and it means a lot when you do something like that. So the Heat coming back with a lot of the same players, you can't think they're not going to be there. You're delusional if you do, and I'm sure a lot of guys want to knock them off. That's what everybody wants to do in this league, right? You want to beat the champs, and a lot of them are back. So of course, there's a lot of garbage being said about them. But in the end, look at the roster. Look what they've been able to do. Look at the numbers they're putting up this season. Don't think they're not going to be there in the end, because they will be.
Yeah,
I got to be completely honest. I think Stockton brought back a lot of their forwards. Looking at the defense and the goaltending, I think that's where the big difference is between this season's team and last. I mean,
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
They are missing. I'm sure they brought back Pasta, who I think is probably the most talented winger in the game. To be quite honest, I know that there's a couple others that are coming to mind this season and really proving it. So, but just saying, I think Pasta, Wally, Ryan, User, Loops. Obviously, those are like 5 core guys. They kept Biggie, and I believe they kept Matt was on last season's team too. I could be, yeah, he was. However, everybody else is no longer on the team. You don't have Tenor. You don't have Pitt Penn's fan, who's a terrific player. Tenor might be the best. He might have been the best defenseman last season. He would have won.
For Stockton?
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
No way.
Yep.
Absolutely not.
No, he was. I'm sorry. He's the best defenseman. He went 10-0 in the playoffs. I think he won 11-1. He lost in 23 games. He only lost 1 game. Guy's terrific.
They had math out as well, right? So
yeah, Matt, you're missing major guys on the back
absolutely.
end. And then you lose your star, goalie and trash clown. It's not particularly shocking that they're reeling. I think they make it competitive towards the end. We'll see how they do though through the season. I think they're really missing some major parts. There's obviously still time to get guys together and get them going, but right now I don't know. We'll see.
They had Trash and Flyers 1992 as their goalies last season, correct?
Absolutely, yeah.
And,
that's a terrific tandem.
And that defense, that's watch those playoff games again, folks, and you'll see. You can attest to this, Ryan. How tough was it to get past the defense and then when you finally got some daylight and a glimmer of hope, you had to take shots on those guys, and that kind of overall defense. That's what got them there as far as they did. I mean, their offense was spectacular, but if their defense didn't match with them and play better, they would not have won a championship.
For sure. I think that's where, the money is. It's all in defense. I mean, everyone says it. It's super predictable that, everyone says defense wins championships. It's because it's true. It's 100% true. Defense helps you win.
Mm-hmm.
That's what wins in this, this league in particular. When you have defensemen who can go around, move the puck by themselves, and get up the ice, make plays, make a guy miss to create 5-on-4s. It makes the game so much easier. The thing is, they moved the puck so well last season, so well. It made it really hard to shut down Pasta because they'd get open lanes from the defensemen creating. I don't know if they have that this season. I've only watched a handful of games. Biggie is obviously one of the best defensemen. He might be the best defenseman in the AHL right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely that core that they had last season it's just not there. D-core, I'm saying, not forward core.
If you look at the top scoring two in the league, Pasta and Loops are in the top 6, but Pasta's 6-6, Loops is 7-5 on the season. They were putting up big numbers last season too, but with great win and loss records. So that tells you right there that if you don't have the defense and you put up a bunch of goals, it doesn't mean a damn thing if you don't have the defense to back it up and give you the wins. And look, these guys are smart enough. Loops and Pasta and the rest of the crowd over there in Stockton, they know that they need better defense. They know that everybody needs to pick it up. The forwards need to come back and help out more. They understand that. I'm sure they do. But that stat alone, if you look at the top scorers who have played 12 games this season at least, you'll see Pasta at number 4, Loops at number 6, and only one of them is over 500 with their record. And that says a lot about how big of a difference a team can be when the defense isn't as good and the goaltending is probably not as good at this point.
I was thinking about this kind of hockey brain teaser / catch-22, and the way I want to say it is, and this is funny. So, your offense comes from your defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the best form of defense is a good offense. So it's like I'm just kind of throwing this out there because I was just pondering this the other day, and it's just something to think about. It's strange how that works. It's like you need a good defense to have a good offense, but your offense can be your best defense because if the other team can't touch the puck and come down on your end, well, then your defense is doing pretty good. So.
Well, you also need a goaltender there too. That really helps.
Oh, now
Throw
we're
something
just,
else into the equation.
Now we're just doing complex irrational fractions and everything else. I don't know what's going on. So.
No, I think it's a point, but I think in hockey, because it's like basketball, it goes back and forth so much that it's it does make a difference, but it's momentary bits of time. In football, the longer you keep the ball, the better off your team is of not giving up points, right?
Right, yeah.
In baseball, the longer you keep hitting and scoring runs and not giving up the outs, the better shot you have. And so I think in those sports, it really does make it's more obvious, maybe not so in hockey, but you're absolutely right. It does make a difference. But those guys still have to come back and help out on D. And I don't know, Stockton is such an offensive, those front lines are so offensive driven. They do come back and help, but they're always so down low in the slot, in the face-off circle. When you're that deep in and a quick pass comes out, and I tell you what, Lehigh Valley, for the first couple of goals they scored against, and they won that game 3-0 against Stockton, it was all, as soon as we get a stick on the puck, throw it up to, in most cases it was over to their left wing, and get the fast break out. And all of a sudden, half of Stockton's team is still back in the phantom zone chasing the play now. And so when you're that much of an offensive team and you're struggling defensively, what do? Do you keep on playing your game, or do you throw this out to you first, Ryan? Do you keep on playing that same game you've been playing and hope your defense hangs back a little bit more, or do they need, as a forward unit, to play a little more defensively, to try and throw pucks on the net, to try not to dangle down low at the goal line, and be ready to react on defense?
I think it's all situational. I mean, there are times when I personally prefer when my team's cycling down low and try to get shots low. I think those are the most high percentage chances. However, there has to be a happy medium between staying all the way down low and really forechecking really hard and staying down low by the goalie and coming back. It's all, I don't know how to describe it. You got to flow that way. Again, it's happy medium.
Vibes, you have any thoughts on what Stockton might or might not do? Do they stay the course, or do they have to think a little more defensively now?
I think they keep doing exactly what they're doing. I mean, yes, I do agree that their defense is not what it was last season. I don't agree that Tenor was their greatest defenseman. That's for sure.
Well, who do you think is better? Just out of curiosity here to get into this argument.
last season, and this season, I think Biggie and I think Matawat was both better than Tenor last season. To be honest with you,
I'm gonna throw this out at you, and it's gonna be like shocking, but like Tenor, he played 10 playoff games last season, you know, all against playoff teams. In 9 out of 10 games, they only let up 1 goal or less, or have a shutout. That's nuts. That's nuts.
yeah.
That's
I mean,
crazy.
I'm not denying that he's not a good defenseman, but I think it's a point that's. I don't think it deserves this much debate, to be honest with you. But I don't think he was their best defenseman.
Okay.
But I do agree with the sentiment that their defense is not nearly as good as it was last season. And in fact, I've been saying that for a few weeks now, and also their goaltending. And I mean, I think that ultimately could be their Achilles heel this season. But if Loops finds a way to improve that defense and improve that goaltending, watch out. And I mean, even as is right now, even without the stud defensive core, I still think they're a contender, and I still think that even if they were to stay the course, they'll be fine. Do I think that they repeat? Well, that's impossible because we're in their conference, so they can't even make it to the final. But even still, no, I don't. I don't think they're as good as they were last season, but they're still a very, very, very good team.
Well, I wanted to try and take a little bit of time, and I know I shared my screen with you, and I wanted to just take a look at a couple of plays against the Heat against Lehigh Valley, and try and discuss a little bit about what it was that I was trying to hint towards. This is a play leading to the first goal here in the first period, and you'll watch how when they come in, and you're looking at Stockton right now coming in with the puck, you're seeing a glut of players in the middle here right now. You're seeing three defenders who are trying to just clog up the middle and not give Stockton much of anything, as a couple of their forwards are coming into the play. And as we continue on with the play, again, a couple of guys are going after the puck immediately. There's three guys within the vicinity, one guy right on the puck with one of the Stockton players, having trouble getting the puck out. Puck is being fought for, and now as you see right there, you're watching the left winger there getting ready to launch himself out on the play because he knows the puck is up for grabs. And as the play continues on, you will see that, yeah, the Lehigh Valley Phantoms had an opportunity, got the puck, moved it up. Now Stockton still chasing back, still trying to come back on defense to make a play happen, and not able to do anything with that while they're still chasing back on defense. And that's just one of the plays, and I'll show you another one in a second here. But that's just an example of what Lehigh Valley did. Again, they tried to just clog up the middle and make things happen. And again, we'll take a look at the following faceoff that led to the next goal. And again, you see Stockton coming in. They're coming down low. Plenty of players right in the middle there, as you see, for Lehigh Valley, just closing off the middle, not giving any opportunity for passes to get through. The puck comes back out again, and you'll see, again, coming right back up, left winger for them, able to make a good play. Stockton chasing back on defense, and again, not able to do anything to help out there and stop what was basically a 2-on-1 on that one. So a little bit of maybe a blueprint on what you can do against them. I don't know if it's something they can or can't adapt to. I'm sure these guys are good enough they can adapt, but is this something, if you see this on tape, Vibes, is this something that you talk to your team about? Do you think that you're going to tell a defenseman to just hang back a little bit? What does a team do like Stockton if they want to keep playing the offensive game that they're playing, but the defense has decided to collapse a little bit more on them?
Well, actually, on the first play, if I'm Lehigh, I'm actually counting my fingers and toes afterwards because their slot coverage was god awful, and if that puck would have squirted out to the middle, it would have been in the back of their net. So I don't fully agree with that. I mean, on the second play, yeah, I see the middle being clogged up well. And I mean, at that point, like, what you want to do to break that down. Listen, and with hockey, there's a counter for everything. You know what I mean? And if a team is really shifty and good at getting one timers and cross ice passes off for one timer goals, then yeah, you clog the middle. But there's also a way to pull a team out of that. If a team is clogging the middle, you can also easily pull them out of that. And it's like rock paper scissors. There's a counter for everything, and it's just I don't know. You just got to find out what's going to work and what's going to get that team to pull itself out of that middle.
I think it's one of the more difficult defenses to score on. I mean, we dealt with it last season going to playoffs. I hate to use personal anecdotes, but I think it's perfectly
Sure.
justifying the situation. When we
Sure.
played Manitoba and then Charlotte, they use that same kind of defense where they clog the middle. There's nothing going to be let in that way. The way we beat it was, again, giving them a little bit of their own medicine and, again, clogging the middle, taking that away, coming back on defense and doing that, and then beating them up on transition. It kind of reminds me of the New York Rangers back under Tortorella. They would literally put everybody out front and throw Marian Gaborik on the wing, and keep them a little bit high. And when they had a chance, they'd literally block a shot, throw it up to Gaborik, and he'd beat everyone with his speed. I mean, looking back, it's crazy that Gaborik had 40 goals in a season in a Tortorella style,
Right.
system. Same kind of deal there. The way you beat it, though, is you have to be really patient with the puck and make them come out towards you. You do that by keeping it in the corners, throwing it behind the net, and making them shift. Eventually, at some point, someone's going to make a bad move, and you just beat them. That's the way you do it.
There are definitely plays in there too. If you watch that game, and I encourage everybody to go watch it. There are times there again when Pasta used his skill and was trying to move and dangle his way out of the corner, and was able to do it for a couple of good shots. But again, the defense of Lehigh Valley, I think, learned from that early on. They kept a little bit of distance. They didn't get too close or too far from him. And if you do that and you give him a little bit of space but not too much to deke around you, then there's not much else he can really do with the puck. He's got to look to get back to somebody to try and get it in front maybe on a bit of a sauce pass, something like that. And I think guys who are really good with the puck like Pasta is, you can't attack him fully. You've got to let him come to you a little bit, but try to anticipate where he's going, push him to the outside. I kind of think that's what Lehigh Valley did in this game. They kept them to the outside. They kept the opportunities down. And then when you've got a goaltender in there like Tyler Lokey, you let him clean up the rest. And basically that's how they shut out the Heat in that game.
When Tyler's on, he's almost impossible to beat. He has some games that are just ridiculous to watch. He's a very good goalie.
So, again, that top line for the Heat going winless last week, and so that knocked them down in the division a little bit. And so that Western, even more deadly. And San Diego's been playing well of late, too. So a tough division all around. Let me get to this question, which is more about what we were discussing last week, Vibes, and that is about, and we kidded about it a lot, but let's talk about it a little bit seriously and say week 3, week 4, the difference between the two, and besides the crazy crap that happened, what did you learn much more about your team, about other teams in your division? Then after week 3, was it that big of a difference because of maybe changes in your team, changes in the other team? Yeah, how do you feel after another week under your belt now, after 4 weeks? Do you feel like you have a good hold about what's going on in your division and what you have to do to be there?
I mean, I feel like I could add some. I could give some legs to the whole week 4 stance on things, because by that time you have seen every team in the league, I believe, right? By week 4, you have seen every team. Would that be accurate, or would that be wrong?
Just about.
Yeah, close to it for sure.
I think you've seen just about every team by week 4. Well, no, maybe not, because I guess we haven't seen Ontario, but you've seen just about every team by week 4. You could make the argument that the season starts there because now you've seen the entire league, and now you should by now know where you stand against every other division and so on and so forth. But as far as me personally learning anything more about my team this week, no. I mean, I've had a pretty good idea of who we are for a few weeks now. I knew coming out of week 1 we weren't a what did we do? I think we went I think we won 3 games that week, so we went 3-6. I knew we weren't a 3-6 team. This past week we went 5-4, so we had a down week. But no, I mean I've known who we are for a while, and I think that a lot of teams probably have. So without me being the whole I'm right vibes, I do still feel that by week 3, the season has fully, gotten underway, and you should know what's coming your way for the rest of the season.
How does that translate to the NHL at this point, Ryan? Is it are too many factors still in play with personnel and roster at this point up there? Or are are guys starting to look at maybe some AHL players? It's a little bit different than what we deal with in the AHL. How do you feel after 4 weeks of this season for you guys up there? Is it panning out the way you expected, or do you still think there's more changes coming there?
I think there's a lot. I don't know. To me, it always seems like there's more trades. I think one of the things that goes into that is the fact that you can trade draft picks.
Sure.
You have a lot more movement because you can just pull up a guy and then throw a draft pick, some way. I think there's going to be a lot of shaking up. My division, I play in the Eastern Metro. It's wide open right now. I would expect a lot more moves to come up. I mean, we'll see. There's some teams up there that are dominating, just kind of like it mirrors the AHL kind of. You have divisions that are super close, namely the Western Pacific, or I'm sorry, Western Central. I mean, I guess the Western Pacific is too. And then you have ones that are basically already won. The Metro has Columbus at they're 31-3-2.
Wow.
They've been killing it.
I was gonna say there's a certain teams up there that are cooked, like completely cooked already. There's certain divisions and races up there that are done, and I don't think that's really the case in the AHL. I think that's the one major difference.
For sure. I mean, you do have teams going in the AHL that there'll be some upsets. I don't see it happening. The top teams getting knocked off by an 8 seed, in the playoffs. I can see it in the AHL, not really the NHL. It'll be interesting to see. It being my first season, I've noticed that there are more trades up here, especially with personnel going in and out. However, we'll see. And then obviously you have the component where you have AHL deals, as a result of NHL deals. And those AHL players coming up. Like this week, we traded for Toasty, who was on Texas. He's now up playing with us. So that does happen.
Do we? I mean, how much more movement are we going to see at this point? Vibes, is it going to be steady up to the trade deadline, or do GMs maybe slow it down, try and see what they have before they trade away the other half
in
of the team?
AHL? Are we talking?
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's certain GMs out there who, it's kind of like they're chasing the dragon, man. It's like they got high that one time, and now they can never get that same high again. And I think there's certain GMs in the AHL that will just continuously trade and every single week they're going to be looking to move this one and move that one. And you said one of the greatest analogies I think I've ever heard with the shuffling deck chairs on the Titanic. And it just so happens that a lot of those teams are, they're cellar dwellers. And they're going to continuously try to trade their shit for better, shinier shit. And at the end of the day, they're just going to realize that that shit stinks differently. So, yeah, I don't think it's going to slow down. I think with certain teams it will slow down. I know with me, spoiler alert, but I got maybe, I don't know, maybe one, two, possibly three more deals in me, if that, if I move anyone.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't know. And I think a lot of the better teams, you'll kind of see the same thing. I don't think you want to do too much. There is such a thing as you can overcook things sometimes, and I think that's what a lot of these guys do, and that's why they're basically destined for mediocrity.
I think that deadline deals, there's gonna be a ton. But leading up to it, I think it'll slow down a little bit in the AHL. I think another component into that is a lot of the draft picks. There were 120 in this past draft.
Right.
Will be coming down from losing NHL teams. So I think that'll be interesting to see how that happens and whether there's a Cleveland 2.0 this season
Yeah.
in regards to that.
I thought it might be too early to have that discussion, so I wasn't going to bring it up. But if we're going to hit on this very quickly, I don't want to talk
Never
about
too
it.
early to talk about Cleveland.
Love talking about Cleveland.
No,
It's my
no,
favorite dead horse to beat.
I really do believe we're going to change the name of this team to the Cleveland Show. It's not on Fox anymore, so I guess we could use it.
Cleveland, sweet.
Well, I mean, it'll be a nice transition from the Stockton show. I
Yeah.
think we have to go back and kick it old school.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just a quick answer. Take 10, 15 seconds. The way the season is going this summer with players, with availabilities, do you see something like this happening again this season? Do you see a Cleveland repeat? Not in Cleveland, of course, but do you see
Well, it could be.
teams having? Well, it could be. Do you see teams having this situation, or did everybody maybe learn a lesson from last season?
I'm gonna hammer the yes button. Just
Okay.
hammer it.
Okay.
If I had a literal hammer here, I'd
Yes, meaning
it.
you.
Yes.
Yes, meaning you think we're going to see that again.
yes,
Okay.
yes, and I think it'll be from. I don't know where it's gonna come from, but I see it happening. Once again, I don't know if it'll happen in the same proportion. I mean, last season it was a complete and total overhaul. I wonder if it'll be, as big. It might be, but I think it'll be pretty close.
Vibes.
I'm not gonna even lie. I'm a little confused as to what the fuck we're even talking about right now. What's going on here?
We're talking about draft picks and amateurs from the NHL. Once this
Coming down?
season's done, coming back down,
coming down.
all onto one team. Yeah.
Well, he hammered the yes button. I'm gonna skull fuck the yes button. I absolutely think so.
120 draft picks. There's no reason not to.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to. I mean, the truth of the matter is that a lot of those guys are just better players. And sure, you could hammer the whole chemistry thing home until you're blue in the face. But, yeah, ultimately, I think that if you have a chance to get better players on your roster, I think you'd be stupid to not do it.
Well, the question I would have is, will the GMs of these teams take a lot of garbage for doing this? Obviously, 4-H Pestilence, Tucka, caught a lot of heat for quote unquote dismantling Columbus last season.
Which, by the way, I totally didn't agree with. I know that the league came down on him saying that he tanked or something.
Yeah.
They're draft picks, buddy. Like, if your team's not doing so hot, why not send them down, right? I mean,
valuable playoff experience in the AHL trumps absolutely none in
labeling
the
that
NHL.
Labeling that a team tanking is stupid.
Well, I mean,
I'm not gonna mince words, but it's stupid.
It happens in the NHL too. I mean, teams do tank. You look at Toronto right before. They got Austin Matthews. They sent down William Nylander. They sent down Mitch Marner. They sent down all these pretty good players, that were actually pretty legit NHL players down to the AHL.
Right.
It happens.
Yeah.
And you've got to let that look. If you're going to treat this as a real league, as a serious league, and we're going to have the same rules as the NHL, and we're going to do all the things the NHL does, then you've got to allow GMs, owners to be able to do this. They have to plan for the future. You have to try and say, look, we're going to believe that you're going to be there for several years, and for several seasons, and so you are planning for the future. If a guy makes moves like that from the NHL and drops down a lot of his players, and then doesn't come back next season, ban his ass for a couple of seasons, maybe even a year, because then that's not showing any kind of dedication to his team. But if he's going to be there and continue to be the owner, let him make those moves and let him do what he needs to do to build his team like any NHL team would have done.
I mean, I would take it even one step further than that and say that these are draft picks. I mean, if a guy's starting to send down his entire NHL roster of veterans or something, I mean, number one, he'd be stupid because there's a good chance that all those players get claimed, and then you got to call people up from the AHL, and then the AHL gets thinned out even more. So I don't think any owner in their right mind would do that. But an owner that's sending down draft picks, because they're out of it, that's their prerogative.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And to get involved with that is completely irrational and completely just off base. And to label, not to use Pestilence as an example, but he's probably the best thing that I can think of that falls in line with that. To label him tanking the season because he wanted to send down a few draft picks and try and stock some future draft picks for the next season. I think that's unreal. I can't believe that. So.
Yeah, I think we're probably all on the same page with this one, and hopefully, if that happens this season, there isn't going to be a lot of obviously, other teams are gonna love to see somebody fail when they do that, but I do not want to see the league come down on anybody who does that, and claims that they're trying to tank the season. I think there have been a couple of instances last season and this season where I have understood that some guys have been claimed to have been they have made moves or have made trades where people and even folks in the league have come back and say, well, we think you're tanking the season. Week two, somebody makes a trade. Week 3, whatever it is, and you think, and especially, look, you and I know this one, Vibes. Teams in first place, they make a big trade. You don't like who they're trading, so you're saying they're tanking the season. That makes absolutely no sense, and I know that there are some bogs out there who have made rulings like that this season, and all I could say is, as much respect as I have for you guys, you have to really look at the details and come to a logical conclusion. And if a team is in first and they're making a move that you don't like and you're claiming they're tanking the season, that pull your head out of your ass. That makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, and that's something that I actually did want to talk about.
Sure.
And I have a specific example, as a matter of fact. There was a trade that was reversed, and I could speak about it because it was public knowledge.
Sure.
So there was a trade made 2 weeks ago or so up in the NHL. It was, it happened to be my NHL team. It happened to be Dead Soul, who's not here right now, but he could actually elaborate even further than I can.
He's probably upset we're talking about it without him here.
Yeah, he probably wishes that he could be here. And in fact, I think that we should do him the service of maybe bringing this up again in the future. So maybe we'll keep this brief. And I just, since we kind of stumbled on the subject, he had moved Primary Flash, who's a very, very good defenseman. You know what I mean? Again, this is all public knowledge. This was in the news and everything. So, they had moved him for another player from Mufang, who is, maybe a lesser defenseman than Primary, but still, two good defenders. Yes, I do believe that Primary is probably worlds better than Mufang. But I mean, there was other things that I won't talk about that I do know about, which aren't public knowledge, that went into the decision to move him. And from I just to keep it real short and sweet. there's certain trades where it's none of the league's fucking business to stick their nose in it and say no, we're gonna reverse this trade. Now, if you're sending like a first place team, 4 players from a first place team for 4 players from a last place team or something of
Yeah,
that
sure.
magnitude, okay, sure, I get what you're saying, but not on little arbitrary decisions like that. It's absolutely not your place.
Right.
And the fact that you get involved in it is just terrible taste. And you can link the rule book in my face and tell me this and make up all these reasons as to why and everything else and explain to me why I'm wrong. But in reality, no, it doesn't matter what you say because you're wrong. And the fact that you get involved in something like that is stupid. So that's all I'll say about that.
And it's all conjecture too. It's all what you think somebody's trying to do, where there's nothing from Dead Soul saying, hey, you know what, I don't feel good about this team. I'm going to start trading all my good players away. If you've got that email, go ahead and show it in the in the league, and the the decisions that come down, make it public. Go ahead and do that. But if it's all I think that you're making a trade to tank the team, what you're thinking with is so far up your ass that you're not looking at the details. A first place team doing well, not
Yeah.
no reason to be
So
tanking at all, and then deciding they're going to trade away their best player because they're tanking it.
Sibs, let me give you a hypothetical situation, okay? Now, let's just say you're a bog, okay? For argument's sake, you're a
God
bog,
forbid.
okay?
Yeah.
And now I'm making a trade, okay? And I'm gonna make a trade. I'm gonna send a player who you think is really, really good. I mean, world beater, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But now you don't know what's going on in my team. And now, from a management perspective, this guy is an absolute cancer. He only
Mm-hmm.
wants to show up for like 2 games, and I have to fight with him to play his third game. And he's just an absolute cancerous person. He's taken years off of my life. You know what I mean? He's
Yep.
he's just somebody who I want absolutely nothing to do with.
Sure.
And now I find a trade where I could send him for a player that you feel isn't that great, isn't nearly as good as him, is okay, but isn't nearly as good as him. Now, you can butt in here and tell me that no, I can't make that trade,
Yeah. No, of course
right?
yeah, it's idiotic. Because no one has any clue what kind of a cancer somebody may or may not be on a team unless you're playing on the fucking team. So if you don't have that insight from and by the way, if most of the rest of the team is saying yes, we want to see this guy moved, he is a great player, but he's a cancer and we don't really particularly want to play with him anymore. Guess what? That holds a lot more weight than your supposed spidey sense telling you that
Yeah,
he's throwing the
yeah,
fucking season. I mean, Jesus, I don't get it. Let me tell you something. And I love Pasta. If I got him on my team and he was being a total prick to me and didn't want to play with players, I would trade him for a bag of pucks in a fucking heartbeat because I don't want that kind of guy on my team because that's my value. Now, if your
right.
value is, well, he's a really good player, so I don't care if he's threatening to blow your house up, you should keep him on your team, then your values suck because you have no
Yeah,
fucking clue what a social video game should be doing, and that is to have us have some fucking fun while trying to keep within rules. But when you start witch hunting people, and I'm sorry for Dead Soul, for his situation, it's a witch hunt. And there's a guy who was a bog, and I think there are still some people who have a problem with him when he left, and they're taking it out on him. Now they can call me out for it. They can say whatever they want to for me. I don't give a fuck. That's how I feel about it. That's not what Dead Soul has said, but I see the writing on the wall. You've got to stop, and if you're going to let this guy run a team, you've got to let him run the team the way he feels he needs to run it. End of story. So, that's, again, I value the same things Dead Soul does. I want to win. I want to have quality, talented team. But if a guy's being a pain in the ass, get him the fuck off the roster.
and just to summarize, man, like it's none of their business to decide that you know what? It's so ridiculous that I actually don't have the words to explain exactly what I want to say. I just think it's totally asinine that they would even get involved and tell someone that they can't make a trade. That's not like, I mean, again, I
Yeah.
understand if it's just egregiously just one-sided, totally lopsided.
Sure.
There's absolutely no validation whatsoever. You know, one team is trading a first place team essentially for a last place team. You know what I mean? Then okay, sure. But otherwise, I mean, stay the fuck out of it.
Should we let Ryan talk now?
Yeah, go
I
ahead,
don't think
Ryan.
I don't think there's anything left that I
No,
can say.
no,
I mean,
no.
you guys
I would,
got it
I would,
nailed it.
I want to know what you feel. Like, give me your words.
The mic's all
Let's hear
yours,
what
Ryan.
you
Go
have
ahead.
to say. Because you know why? Because a lot of times you go against what I feel. So I want to see if maybe this is just beyond a doubt that we're all in agreement.
It is. I don't really have anything else to add. I mean, it's the league should stay out of it. I mean, it's something that they should look out for, but like that deal is not, you know, what I would consider gross and negligent. You know what
No.
I'm saying? So yeah, I've got nothing else to add. Sorry.
To me,
No. I wanted to hear from Ryan because now that he agrees with me, it makes me know I'm right.
okay,
Because otherwise he wouldn't agree with me.
as opposed to what I said.
Well, the fact that you agree with me
I mean,
too makes
I'm not
me,
disagreeing with you. I mean, I think Ryan's opinion is much more valuable than mine is. But I just
No,
wanted to make sure it was
I'm
clear.
I'm glad that I'm thought so highly of.
I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to say that his opinion is better than yours. I'm just saying
I gotcha.
we're all in agreement. It's like we're building a case, and it looks like that they did it in the pool hall with the candlestick.
Well, you know what? I tell you what this is like. This is a lot like I almost felt like I was back in fantasy football, where somebody makes a trade with another team, and all of a sudden, all the other teams are angry about it because it really benefits somebody who's good. That's
Yeah.
not the point of arguing a trade. The point is it something that somebody needed to do because it's going to help their team in the long run on both sides and they're not trying to help a friend out? If the answer is yes, then shut the fuck up and let it happen. Plain and simple.
Yeah, if it's completely like just totally off base, then sure maybe. But otherwise, it's I don't know. I can't believe. You know what, man? And I guess I really shouldn't get as fucking angry as I do with some of the shit that
Neither
this
should
league
I.
does. But I can't help it sometimes. I mean, because some of the shit that goes on here is just so infuriating that, uh, I don't know. I don't even know. I need to check my pulse sometimes.
Yeah, I think we both kind of get each other riled up for this kind of shit. But it hits closer to home to you, Vibes, because it is within your organization. And and look, Dead Soul, Dead Soul is, he's about as fair and honest of an individual as you're gonna find anywhere. Period. So to think that guy's gonna
way
tank
more
it,
fair than me. Way more fair and reasonable and level-headed than I'll ever be.
dude.
That's for damn sure.
I
You know?
would agree about the same thing about me as well. We'll leave Ryan out of this because he's pure and honest. But I,
Ryan's pure.
well, okay, honest. I'm not pure, but
Little Ryan sitting at his computer wearing white right now.
Yeah.
Pure,
Yeah,
total
exactly.
pure.
I got the little halo. in my
Halo,
head.
yeah, and a light shining on him. Dead Soul is how anybody could think he tries to tank a team. You
Right.
obviously don't know who's in this league, and if you're a bog, that's fucking sad. And if you were a bog who worked with Dead Soul when he was a bog, when he did work, and you think that of him, oh my God, quit. Please quit for the rest of the league. Do us a favor, because you're making this league shit by having those kinds of thoughts and ideas. If you're the guy who thought that Dead Soul was making a trade to throw his team, quit. Because if you know Dead Soul, quit
second week
your
of the
fucking
season,
job.
too, by the way, and they were on top of their division at the point. Now they're in the basement, but at that point,
Yeah,
they were on the top of their division,
Yep.
and it was like the second week. So
yeah.
I
Second
mean,
week of a season.
Great reason to tank. No, that's somebody just hating on the situation.
Like I said, quit. Quit your job.
Yeah,
If you're the
quit.
bog who thought that, quit your job. Plain and simple. You don't belong here anymore. We have no use for you.
Sibs is really taking the lead on this. Jesus Christ, he's
You know what?
really.
It sounds like Vibes is just talking to himself. Is from my.
Yeah,
It's kind of amazing.
he's really gone off the reservation here. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen him like this before.
Yeah, I will stand up for any of you guys. There's a reason why you're all doing a show. It's because because y'all have class to a certain extent, and you have values on this stuff. And Dead Soul is
Class
on.
with an asterisk.
Well,
Giant asterisk.
He said you all have class, and he thought about me, and he was like, to a certain extent.
Ryan, that wasn't meant for you.
Like shit. I've already said it.
Yeah. To a certain extent.
But yeah, I'll stand up for anybody on my team because they're all good guys. And man, Dead Soul, if you think that about him, you're fucked in the head, plain and simple. So anyway, enough of that. I think we've railed on enough. We're getting towards the end of the show at this point here. Week 4 through, and a lot of teams still in this. Final question: are we surprised about how many teams that are still in this? In the running who have not dropped out. I know it's early, but I really feel like maybe there's 1 or 2 teams that I can't see coming back, but I'm thinking right now there are a lot of teams still in this. It doesn't matter what's happened so far. I think you have a shot no matter where you are. Do you feel the same way right now, Ryan?
I think for most of the divisions, I think the Eastern and North, it's pretty much locked up. I have those 4 teams. Going on into the playoffs. I think the other divisions, yeah, it's kind of up in the air. There's a couple teams that are starting to separate themselves. You have Cleveland with 56 points compared to 45 with Grand Rapids. I mean, that's the difference between a good and bad week. However, I think that they will continue and build upon that point lead. I think that the other 3 divisions all have heated races. We'll see how it goes. I think the Western Conference will be interesting to watch. The Eastern Atlantic, not so much. However, they got to put 4 teams forward anyway. We'll see how it goes. It'll be fun.
How do you see it, Vibes? Are you surprised at all the teams that are still in this?
No, I'm not. I mean, I by the what are we, the 5th season now, right? So,
Yep.
I mean, I think that with the exception of new guys who have never done this before, I think a lot of the GMs have some experience, and it's not surprising, honestly, that things are starting to tighten up. I think with the exception of a few teams, maybe Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, and then a few teams actually over in the Eastern North. With the exception of those teams, and I mean, even for those teams, I will say that. How about this? I'm going to go and give a message to the league and say that there is not a single team in this league right now who is out of it. How about that? It's still not too late to turn your season around.
Some teams would have to have bigger turnarounds than others if it's possible.
Yes, it would take a bigger turn than my ass, but you're not out of it yet. How about that?
No one's dead.
No one's dead. How about that? None of you guys are out of it. You can all turn it around. Every single team in this league right now, if you get your shit together and start putting some wins out there on the board, you can still make the playoffs. Maybe you can't come in first, but you can still make the playoffs. And that's every team.
Yeah, the Baby Pens.
That's what you play for.
The Baby Pens have lost 10 in a row, right? But they're still only 14 points back of 4th place Providence. It's still not.
They have very few wins and very low point totals for the season. But I mean, you're in a bad division. Mm-hmm. And there's still a chance that you can make it. There's not a team in this league that can't make the playoffs. How about that? Not a single one.
There you go. I think I agree with you. Amazingly enough, I think I actually agree.
But you gotta start putting some wins together, because you know what? Another week or so, and I might have a totally different story for you.
I'm sure you will.
Yeah, I might. In a week or so, I might tell you that you ain't got a prayer in the fucking world, and your life is over. And you
well, I don't know. I don't know if that's the case.
Well, I don't know about life. That's probably a little bit too much.
That might be too much.
Your AHL life is finished anyway for this season.
All right, guys. Fun as always. Thanks for helping me out tonight.
Yeah, Sibs, I really like the fire out of you tonight. That was a different look. That was a new look. That was good.
There's more coming. I guarantee you there's more coming. Because there'll be more dumb things said and dumb decisions made. So we'll talk more about them. For sure. All right, Vibes. Ryan, thanks again. Good talking to you again. We'll touch base next week.
Terrific.
All right, thanks.
All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in tonight for AHLPSN this week. Hope you're getting ready for the next week. I know this one just ended, but practicing. How about we practice? How about everybody actually put a practice in?
Practice?
Yeah, I know.
We got a league full of Iversons.
Allen Iversons. Yes,
Yeah, I know.
I was gonna say it. Full league of Allen Iversons. They skip practice.
Yeah. All right. That's it for us. We'll talk to you again next week.